Circles. A circle is not a polygon. If you'll remember, polygons have straight sides and they have at least 3 straight lines that create the shape. A circle, though, is a set of points, a fixed distance from a center point. So the radius is the distance from the center to the outside of the circle. And anywhere from the center to the circle itself is the same length of distance there. Okay, the diameter is the entire distance across and through the center point. So these are 2 very important words to distinguish because you're going to use those in a formula. Circumference is like the perimeter of a polygon, but it is the distance around the circle. And they just, circum means to, like you hear circumnavigate the globe, that means to go around the globe. So there are 2 formulas that you need to know how to use. The area formula of a square and the circumference of area of a circle or the circumference of a circle. The area formula is just pi times radius squared. So this symbol is spelled P-I and pronounced pi like you would have a piece of pie. And this symbol is equivalent to the number 3.14 or 22 over 7, the fraction 22 sevenths. If you would put 22 divided by 7 into your calculator, you will get 3.1428 blah, 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 and on forever. This number will go on forever, never repeating. So because the 3rd digit was a 2, they just stopped it and rounded it off and left it at 3.14. So you can use either number in the position of pi. You can also use the pi key on your fancy calculator if you have such a key. The circumference formula is pi times d, which stands for diameter. So if you remember, radius is from the center outside, so that's really half the distance across the circle. Diameter is the entire distance across the circle. So circumference times the entire distance across the circle, or 2 times pi r, which means you could have 2 times the radius, which is the same thing as d, times pi. So these 2 equations, these 2 formulas are equivalent. I like the pi d because I do the calculations in my head, and this one helps me to keep it separated from this pi r squared. I was always getting these 2 things confused because I had 2's involved with them, but one is squared and one is just times 2. So be careful. All right, so here's an example. I've got a large circle and then a smaller circle inside, almost looking like a donut. And it tells me that the radius of the small circle is 2 inches in this case. So from the center to the outside of the small circle is 2 inches. Then the radius of the large circle is 6 inches. But what it's showing me is the radius from the center of the small circle, which is also the center of the large. Then I had a distance of 4 from the outside of the small circle to the outside of the large circle. But when I add the 4 plus the 2, the radius of the small circle, it gives me the entire radius of the large circle. Okay, here's a question. What is the radius of the large circle? Well, the radius of the large circle is 6 inches. What is the diameter of the small circle? Well, the diameter is this 2, and then I have to go the other side as well. So 2 times 2 is 4. That's the diameter of the small circle. And what's the diameter of the large circle? Well, the diameter is going to be to double this number 6. So 2 times 6 is 12. Then it says, what is the approximate circumference of the small circle? Well, as I've told you before, whenever you're asked for something, write the formula down. So the circumference of a circle is pi times d. Well, we just found out what the d was. The diameter of the small circle is 4. So I'm going to go pi times 4. Well, pi is 3.14 times the number 4. And when you do that multiplication, you get 12.56. And then I am rounding that either to 13 inches because I've got more than half, or I'm making it 12.6. So depending on what they asked you for, these numbers would be appropriate. And the other formula, I told you there were 2 for circumference. I could have used 2 times pi r. Well, if the radius is 2, so I would end up having 2 times 3.14 times 2 again. Well, it's much easier for me to do 2 times 2. That gives me 4. And 4 times the 3.14, it gets me back to exactly what I had before. So that's how you use that formula. So here is another circle. I've drawn the same circle again. So it looks like the donut. And I have the measurement of the radius of the small circle is 2. And showing the distance from the small circle to the large circle is 4 inches. But when you add those two together, that's what gives me the radius of the large circle. So it says, what is the area of each circle? So now I'm going to write down the formula for area. Pi r squared. Well, pi we know is 3.14. The r is the radius of each one. So I'm doing the small circle first. The radius was 2, and I need to square it. So 2 squared is the same as 2 times 2, which is a 4. And I'm getting that same 12.56, and it becomes square inches. A moment ago, and I did not say this, and I'm sorry, all we got was 12.56 inches or 13 inches, just straight inches. But now we're getting square inches or even inches squared. I could have the little exponent too. All right, now I want to do the large circle. So I'm starting with my same area formula. I'm putting in the symbol pi, the number that it relates to. The radius was 6, so I need to do 6 squared, which is 36. And 36 times 3.14 gives me 113 and 400ths square inches. At this point, they might ask me for to the nearest whole number, which would be 113 square inches. Over here, it would be 13 square inches. Sometimes they might give you the circumference and ask for the diameter. Just use the correct formula and fill in the given numbers in the correct spot and solve for the missing number. So here's an example. They tell you that the circumference is 25.9, and they ask you, what is the approximate diameter? Write down the formula. So circumference formula is circumference equals pi times d. I'm putting 25.9 in the place of the circumference, or the letter C. I then have the equal sign. I then show 3.14 times the d. I don't know what d is. I want to move 3.14 to the other side of the equation, so I am dividing both sides by 3.14, and that then gives me the 3.14 cancels, leaving just d on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side, under the circumference, what was the circumference side, it just says is 8.2484 equals d. So that's telling you that equals the diameter, and maybe it would be approximately 8.3 would be the diameter. So just don't forget what you know about how to undo to do an inverse operation.